All right, this past weekend, we had one of the biggest spectacles in maybe the history of the sport of boxing, with all of the young stars in boxing fighting back to back to back in none other than Times Square, culminating in a main event that I think is going to completely change the future of these lower weight classes in boxing for years to come. First, we have Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barbosa Jr. And look, I have long said when it comes to all of these young guys, Teofimo Lopez is probably the best. And I say that because he is the only one that is truly the full package. When you think of power, you think of Tank. When you think of speed, you think of Ryan. The defense is Shakur. Devin Haney as the punch variety. Teofimo Lopez has all of that together. And when you look at his resume, he is probably the most accomplished out of all of them as well. And Teofimo Lopez's quickness, his speed, and his power, his footwork, all of it was on display early on in this fight. And Arnold Barbosa put up a hell of a fight. But at the end of the day, just as the announcers said during the fight, he was just kind of outmatched athletically. At the end of this one, Teofimo Lopez was able to retain his titles, which again probably just further cements him as, when it comes to the 140-pound division, the best in the world. Next, we had Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez in a fight that, look, let's just face it, was not very exciting at all. And look, I do think Devin had moments in this fight where he showed how good he really is, but for the most part, he kind of just danced around the outside looking to not get hit. And he had moments of brilliance. He had moments where he showed his prowess as a counterpuncher. The guy is one of the more fundamentally sound boxers you're ever going to see. But I think in this one, he's just kind of dealing with the hangover from the Ryan Garcia fight, which again, that's a fight where the guy got hurt in a way that he has never been hurt before when it comes to boxing. And I think that, alongside of the fact that in this fight, he's not just fighting to win. A win here, ideally, if the main event didn't go the way it did, would have set Devin Haney up for a giant money fight in a rematch with Ryan Garcia. So I guess he felt like it was better to play it safe than be sorry. And on one hand, I can kind of get that, but on the other, I mean, this fight was kind of insane. I'm pretty sure they set some kind of record when it comes to CompuBox numbers for just how low, how awfully abysmal the output was in this fight. And that brings us to the main event, Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero. Now, I'm going to be honest, I had money on Rolly winning. And not because I thought that Rolly should have been the favorite, but these guys are a lot closer in terms of overall skill level than the odds had it. I think Rolly was something like plus 750. And another thing to take into consideration is that these guys already have a common opponent, and none other than Gervonta Tank Davis, who was able to land a perfect shot against Rolly Romero, which is why I think most people just remember the knockout. But Rolly was able to land some big shots of his own, and his kind of wild swinging style, I thought, was maybe not the perfect style, but it was a really good style. Went up against Ryan Garcia's style of standing really narrow, generally throwing single shots, and overall doing everything pretty technically correct, but a lot of that gets nullified when Rolly just kind of comes in and, I don't know, just does some Rolly shit, which is exactly what happened pretty early in this fight. Rolly Romero doubling up on that left hook, dropping Ryan Garcia in a way that was very reminiscent of how he got dropped by Luke Campbell, which was also in the second round. The difference being Rolly was able to continue to take advantage of that forward and aggressive pace for essentially the duration of this fight. Rolly, being the shorter fighter, he's always been good at kind of getting leverage on his shots, swinging hard to the body and to the head. And I think this was able to earn him some respect from Ryan, ultimately forcing Ryan to fight most of this fight on the back foot, fighting on Rolly's time, at Rolly's range, ultimately leading to Rolly more or less just cruising to a decision win. Now, I will say, when this one was all said and done, both of these guys carried themselves with a lot of respect for one another and a lot of class. Rolly showing humility in victory and Ryan showing humility in defeat. Neither of these guys had really anything bad to say about one another. And while this fight was probably the more exciting of the three main events, or at the very least the last two main events, and as great of a feel-good story this is for Rolly Romero, finally getting his way back to being at the top of one of these big cards, but this time ending it with a win. In the end, this entire fight was still all centered around two people: Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. And this card was supposed to build up a rematch between the two, but now we have Devin coming off of a very boring performance. And on the other side, Ryan Garcia coming off of a loss. So it kind of just really makes you scratch your head as far as what even makes sense after this. I heard someone float the idea of Rolly Romero versus someone like Conor Benn. I think that's very interesting. I think the crossover between the UK audience and the American audience, two guys that are full of personality and who will bring it in the ring and guarantee us an absolute firefight. I love that. When it comes to Ryan Garcia, look, as kind of crazy as it sounds, and I'm sure it's going to lose a lot of interest, I think in a weird way, the rematch between Ryan and Devin makes even more sense now. I think for a lot of the general public, they came away from the first fight thinking that Ryan Garcia absolutely whooped Devin and there's almost no reason to do a rematch. I disagree. The guys went 3-3 in the amateurs. Their fight was actually more competitive than the highlights reveal it to be. And I think now Ryan coming off of a loss in which he looked fairly pedestrian, Devin Haney getting back into the win column, again, looking fairly pedestrian. I think that if Rolly was able to beat Ryan throughout the 12 rounds, not just from an early knockout, kind of makes me think that someone as skilled as Devin could probably do the same. But then you got to wonder, how do the mental demons of the first fight haunt Devin, and is he able to go in there against Ryan and do what he does best? So yeah, funny enough, I think the rematch is less exciting now. I think it's actually more interesting of a fight. So let me know in the comments below, what did you guys think of this fight? What do you think's next for any of the guys involved in all three of these main events? I don't know why they call them all main events. There's one main event. And how do you feel about the potential rematch between Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney still going forward? Thanks for watching. Now, I will say, when this one was all said and done,